What is up, guys? It's your boy Sly Jordy, and welcome back to F1 23, my team career mode. What an episode! Last episode was my first ever race around Jeddah, the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. If you missed it, you have to go check it out. I'll give you 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. We placed 13th, which was really good considering how horrible Bahrain turned out. Obviously, we showed a lot of potential during that first race, but end of the day, we still had a massive collision and ended up finishing last, just way behind the pack. I kind of wish we got crashed out there, but Jeddah, we did really well at, considering that was our first ever race around that track. I'm glad that we did well, and 13th is showing a lot of potential. But next up is a track that I am very familiar with. I have done this track more times than any other track in any F1 game. Of course, the Australian Grand Prix is the only track available in F1 2018, and I played a lot of 2018 for a few weeks before I bought 2019, and then of course ended up playing 2020, and now we're here. But yes, basically what I'm trying to get to is we've done a lot of laps of the Australian Grand Prix. Hell, it was only just last week that we did it last time, because of course we went back to F1 2018 5 years later. So yeah, in the standings we are 15th after that 13th place spot. I don't really know how it all works at this point, because we haven't got a point, but we're hoping things change here in the Australian Grand Prix. Of course, I know I'm pretty good around this track, at least in the other F1 games. I don't know how it's going to turn out in 23, especially since there's a new layout. And I didn't play 22. The last one I played was 2020. So the new layout might be a bit different, might be really weird, but of course we're going to check it out. So yeah, guys, if you're excited for this episode, be sure to hit that like button. And without further ado, let's get to qualifying. And here we are going for our first flying lap here in Q1. Man, the engine sounds so good, honestly. I think the Renault engine has got to be my favourite sounding engine out of all the ones I've tried. Actually, I don't think I've driven a Ferrari yet. I think I have in a live stream, but I don't really remember it. I think I did it once. But yes, here we are, opening up the DRS, going for our first lap around the new Melbourne track. So this is my first experience of that, so does it make it any more difficult? Does it make it any more easier? We're about to find out. So here we are into our first major corner here, slowing down a bit here, and it goes perfectly. Yeah, we're doing a really good first lap so far. Really good sector 1 here. Beautiful, just effortlessly smoothing around it. And yes, here is where our first difference is going to lie, because there are no massive slowdowns here. We just go faster and faster. There's even an extra DRS zone, so I think it has definitely gotten a lot easier, that's for sure. And here's this corner. It's really important to nail this corner, which we do just about, using a lot of the curb there, going into the other DRS zone, the third DRS zone, or is it the fourth? I think there's 4 DRS zones, so yeah, Melbourne is a lot faster now. And here we are into our final 2 corners. It's been a pretty decent lap. I mean, it's felt really good anyway, as we open up the DRS once again, going towards the finish line with a 1:20. We actually set the fastest lap of the session so far. That is beautiful. It doesn't last long though, because of course reigning world champion Max Verstappen goes across the line, but a second place behind Verstappen, just a second behind him, is actually really nice. As we now go on to our second lap in Q1, looking pretty good. Almost half a second cut off the time that we originally set. And that's track evolution for you. Or maybe we just drove better, maybe it's a mixture of both, but I'm saying it's track evolution in the last 5 minutes of the session. Here we are, almost half a second cut off that time. We don't gain any positions, we're still a 10th behind Perez, but that helps solidify our P7, and of course we're able to make it into Q2 as we now go towards the end of our first lap of qualifying 2. Is this our first time in Q2? I'm not quite sure. My memory is a bit foggy of the last 2 episodes. Of course, I did them days ago. I've taken like a couple days off of my team because I recorded like 5 episodes in a row. So my memory might be a little foggy. But yes, this time, oh my god, the second lap in Q2 was insane, daringly close, tantalizingly close to almost a second cut off our original Q2 time. So Track Evolution is certainly a big factor here at Melbourne as we take P4, which is absolutely insane. But of course, some people are yet to do their second lap, but it doesn't matter. We make it into Q3 along with Esteban Ocon and Valtteri Bottas. Those are the surprising ones here. Of course, Lance Stroll knocked out, Lando Norris knocked out. We actually got into the 119 area. Charles Leclerc on pole position going into Q3. So obviously, we're feeling rather confident because we don't even have to take part in Q3. We could have just skipped the entire session, taken P10, and that still would have been good for us. But I want to see just how far we can push this car around this track because we are doing so good. And I'm going to be quite honest, I really enjoyed Melbourne on this game. It was a very enjoyable track to go on as we now go around the final corner to start and begin our first lap of Q3, our first ever lap on Q3. I don't know if we reached Q2 before, but this is definitely the first time we reached qualifying 3, which is absolutely insane. It's beautiful as we set the DRS there down this big straight. And can we nail this corner? This corner, of course, it's a bit 50. These couple of corners are a bit 50-50 on whether or not I actually nail them. Sometimes I really don't do well on them, but we have done absolutely perfectly there, and it's a beautiful green sector 1 for us right there. We are doing, we're just flying high down under, aren't we? That's the title for the video, flying high down under. Beautiful. And our first ever Q3. This is absolutely insane, and it's looking good for the race. We could actually gain our first set of points. A little bit shaky on that little section right there, but not good enough to really hurt any big time. And of course, this is only our first lap of the session. There's always room for improvement, especially with Track Evolution being a thing, as Carlos Sainz sets the fastest lap of the session. Bottas has a 120. We've definitely gone faster than that, so we could get a pretty good position here as Fernando Alonso sets a time, and Lewis Hamilton is there as well, and we actually get a P7 with that one. So we were actually quicker than Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes for our first lap, which is insane. And of course, for our second lap, again, well over half a second, 3/4 of a second ahead of our original time. Daringly close once again to almost a second, and we actually gain P6 right there. And by the end of it, after everybody has done their laps, of course, Hamilton drastically improves. But we are better than Bottas and Ocon, and those are the two guys that we really want to be better than in this race. I think everybody above us is going to be clearly way better than us, so I think P8 might be our best chance here, but Bottas and Ocon quite a while behind us. We actually were much quicker than them.
Welcome to Melbourne, and welcome to the Australian sun. We're still getting used to some track revisions here, but the core hasn't changed. This is a beloved classic of the F1 calendar, and it's time for the Australian Grand Prix. We go racing today then in the state of Victoria, where the drivers have 14 corners and 3.28 miles to navigate at an average lap speed of around 120 miles per hour. Close proximity of the barriers make accidents inevitable, and recent history shows us that a safety car is not at all out of the question. It's time to take a look at our starting grid for today's race. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start from pole position. And it's Charles Leclerc in P2. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Hamilton, Sainz, Perez, Russell, Fernando Alonso, the owner driver, Bottas, Ocon, Norris, Gasly, Stroll, Joe, Hulkenberg, Magnussen, Tsunoda, Oscar Piastri, Albon, Drugovich, Sargent, Drugovich. And now it's time to head down to the track. Natalie Pinkham joins me once again in the commentary box. It's fantastic to have you with us today. I'm curious though, how do you think the drivers stop those pre-race nerves from becoming overwhelming when you're...
Well, the regulations aren't new anymore, but the teams and the drivers are still coming to terms with them. I firmly believe it's also track specific. We've seen some wheel-to-wheel racing throughout the year. Some tracks lend themselves better to it than others. I'd like to see it at every race in the whole season. Is that too much to ask?
So of course, here we are at Albert Park, a really good position of P8. Oh god, it's so good. It is so good. We are just behind Fernando Alonso, so maybe we could actually gain a couple more positions. Obviously, you guys know that I like to dive a little bit into turn 1. Obviously, it might come back to haunt me sooner or later, as it did at Jeddah. As I did say at Jeddah, sorry, it didn't happen at Jeddah, but I did mention it in that episode. I didn't really know what to do for the strategy at first. I sort of wanted to go on the softs first to try and gain track position, but obviously remember all the cars in front of us are a lot faster than us. So I think it was best for us to actually start on the mediums eventually and then go on to the softs, because that way I was thinking maybe some reverse psychology. Maybe a lot of people were doing the softs first, so maybe we could gain a lot of positions towards the end of the race, or at the very least be able to defend our position a lot better towards the end of the race on the softs for the last 6 laps. Of course, at this point, you've probably already noticed we've turned down the race length from 50% to 35%, which is new to this year's game. And honestly, I've now done 3 whole races with 35%. I've technically done more, as some people do 35% on multiplayer. So, yeah, it's definitely a race length that I enjoy a lot more. Again, purple in terms of reforming at the start here. We are behind Alonso, Russell, Perez. We can see Hamilton in the distance. Maybe we can gain a couple of positions diving into turn 1. I don't know. But as we go to 5 red lights, we are about to put the pedal to the metal as we get started here at Albert Park. And George Russell is very slow at the start there, and we're actually going to be able to not get a good turn there, because Valtteri Bottas has done our job for us. He's dived down there and managed to gain a P5. He's gone from P9 to P5. That is insane. That's my job. That's my job to dive at that first turn, and we weren't able to because Bottas did it. He dove right down the outside, and I blame George Russell for that one. So Valtteri Bottas has had an absolutely flying start here, which is crazy considering at Bahrain he didn't even finish the race. He DNF'd. He redeemed himself at Jeddah, gained a point. But now look at this, a P5 for Bottas, and we are getting hounded by a much quicker Mercedes here of George Russell. Fernando Alonso is just behind him, so it's a bit dangerous here, and I think the grid is going to be slowed down quite a lot from P5 downwards, quite simply because Valtteri Bottas, I mean, maybe Alfa Romeo had some upgrades. I've definitely got to make it a point to check out the R&D chart a lot more, but maybe he's going to slow down Carlos Sainz, and maybe we could actually get an overtake right there. As we finish up our first lap, Max Verstappen sets the fastest lap of a 1:26, which isn't really that fast at all, but obviously we're starting from a standstill. And we go on to our second lap here, halfway through. George Russell going down the outside. It's a beautiful overtake. We're going to let him pass because there's no point defending against a much quicker car in the Mercedes. He's not in our fight, basically. But Fernando Alonso is also going to overtake us. We're going to try and squeeze him because I really think there's a chance we could fight him, but no. Fernando, that's a 2-time world champion right there, Fernando Alonso. definitely makes it a point to let us know how good his experience is compared to ours. And now we're back where we sort of expected to be, fighting with the McLaren and the Aston Martin of Stroll. Of course, Lando Norris is not who I expected to see in the McLaren, right up my rear wing. Usually it's Oscar Piastri. Lance Stroll is definitely someone I'm used to seeing, but Fernando Alonso hasn't stretched far enough ahead. We got DRS, we're going to dive down the inside, and it is a aggressive but beautiful overtake right now, and it's took Fernando Alonso so off guard that he's actually lost 2 positions on that corner there. Lando Norris taking P9. Of course, we've got to keep a close eye on Lando Norris because he started on the softs, whereas we're on the mediums. But it's fine. We've actually ended up gaining almost 3 seconds on Fernando Alonso as we do the same sort of overtake on Valtteri Bottas, and we managed to take P7. So almost halfway through the almost halfway through the race here, and we've got a P7. And Fernando Alonso is looking a little slow. He might have an issue with his car. Who knows? I guess the Aston Martin are a bit slow in this game for some reason. It's really weird, but as a bunch of people enter the pits, we go up to P4, and our pit window is now open. We are going to get ready for the softs. We've got a one-stop strategy, as every race will most likely be at this point. I think for season finales we might do like full race lengths. I don't know, but we are going to enter the pits now, and we're going to see just how we do.
And it looks like the pit crew are out in the lane and ready to perform their magic on the car. They're going to be aiming to achieve the fastest pit stop time possible.
And honestly, after the pit stops we've had in the first couple of races, that is a breath of fresh air. A 3-second pit stop. Obviously, we need to start leveling up our pit crew, which I actually do end up doing. We haven't really taken much of a look at our upgrades yet, quite simply because we just don't have that much money to start off with. But the pit crew was something I definitely wanted to make a point to upgrade, but we got lucky here. It just looks like Melbourne today is our day, quite simply. We struggle a little bit, wobbling a little bit at first because Bottas is right up our windshield, our rear wing, sorry. Alonso's not that far behind him. It seems as though those guys are going to be picking up the pace as well. They are also on the softs, so what I said earlier about maybe doing reverse psychology or reverse strategy to everyone else, it seems as though we got a mix of everything. Some people are on the mediums. I'm guessing everybody ahead of us is are on the hards, but we don't need to worry about them because there's no way we're catching up to them. We're literally the worst car on the grid. So honestly, we are flying high. This is well above our standards. We are just so good around Melbourne. And it's not just us. Like, the car is so good around Melbourne as well. It just feels so good. And I think in terms of the car setup, I think I just have it balanced. You know, I think I just have a balanced setup. I didn't really change it too much from Jeddah, if I'm being quite honest. But yeah, as we move on to the final lap, because honestly it was quite uneventful. It became a bit of a lonely race. We are well over a second in front of Alonso in this final lap, which is beautiful, but of course Russell's pulled really far ahead as well. Obviously I want to check out the MFD just to see how close Alonso is. He's on old softs, the tyres, 6 laps old, just like pretty similar to us. I think they pitted a lap earlier or something like that, but in this DRS zone, even without DRS, Alonso is pulling like mad. Like well over half a second gained, almost an entire second gained on us just on that right there, and that might be down to tyre wear. I don't think so though. I think whatever issue Alonso had during this race is gone now, and we obviously go defensive onto the inside there because Alonso is right up our rear wing. And honestly, beating Fernando Alonso is going to be a big deal. Sergio Perez, Checo, takes the race win for Red Bull here. Another win for Red Bull. Surprise, surprise. We go around the final turn, and it is a beautiful P7 points on the board for Sly Team Racing. Wow.
That's the end of the race. We'll see you in Parc Ferme.
And the engineer's not as enthusiastic as I am. for some reason. Driver of the day, Lando Norris. I don't know why. He didn't really have a good race, if I'm being quite honest. I would have said I should have got driver of the day. But it is what it is, you know. Driver of the day doesn't really gain you any points. I wish it did, though. I think driver of the day should gain at least 1 point. But yeah, I guess since that's a voting thing, it would get out of hand rather quickly, perhaps. Maybe some people would get points that they quite simply don't deserve. I don't know. But, yeah, there you go. A beautiful race at Melbourne. P7. Checo wins it here. So obviously doing much better here than he did in real life. To be fair, in real life he did some amazing overtakes at Melbourne here, but it's a quite familiar podium for us in this series so far. Double Red Bull podium with a Ferrari there as well of Charles Leclerc. So yeah, very good race, and a very good race for us. That's what matters. Points on the board, and for a team like us, we're meant to be a backmarker team. It's going to be very important. Every point we can get is going to be drastically important. But a P7 is absolutely insane for us. So yeah, that's just beautiful. Look at that, P7. We started at P8, so I guess that's why we weren't driver of the day, whereas Lando Norris was. He started at P11, and we are now 10th in the drivers' standings, ahead of Lance Stroll, ahead of Bottas, and honestly, in my opinion, very satisfyingly, ahead of Albon after the troubles that he gave us in our first race. Hell, he ruined our entire first race for us. We're P7 in the Constructors, which is very good for us. I don't know what position we're going to be fighting for towards the end of the season. I think P7 might be the best we can hope for in terms of getting points, because quite frankly, Drugovich is just not going to be that far up there. I am focusing on his focus, so hopefully at some point, as the car gets better, Drugovich will also be able to perform a lot better as well. I don't really plan to sign another driver going into the second season. I really think that we're going to stick with Felipe Drugovich, because I know how good he is, you know, and I know how good he could be. I know in terms of his overall, some people are pretty close to him, so I think at some point maybe we could drag him up the standings with us, you know, even if he can just finish P10 every race. You know, that's a point every race. That's 20 odd points in a season. And as we go back to our headquarters, we have a marketing development here, and we're going to choose a potential rival, Valtteri Bottas or Yuki Tsunoda. So Bottas we had a bit of an exchange with at Melbourne, and Tsunoda, of course, we had a lot of fight with in Jeddah. But I'm going to be quite honest, our rival should be Albon. I don't know why Albon isn't one of our decisions here. And, you know what, I'm going to make the surprising decision here. And actually, we're going to end up going with Valtteri Bottas in terms of our rival. Quite simply because he's just better than Tsunoda in terms of the overall. So I feel like we could gain more acclaim if we actually end up beating Bottas. But I genuinely think Albon should have been one of those choices, especially after Bahrain. We would definitely want to beat him. But going into the next episode, we have a lot of upgrades, so stay tuned for next time. Cheers for watching. Peace.